When night falls and sound withdraws, the archive remains. The night is long, the air is still. Only what must continue, continues. The blackboard is not clean. It has not been clean for some time. Not since the last class used it. Not since the last hand drew the last line across it. Not since the last eraser moved across the surface and left the surface slightly lighter than it found it, but not empty, never empty. The surface holding what the erasing could not reach. What the erasing could not reach is in the pores. The blackboard surface is not smooth at the scale that matters here. It is a material whose surface was prepared for writing by giving it a particular texture, fine enough to appear uniform to the eye, coarse enough at the microscale to grip the particles of chalk as a stick of chalk moves across it. Each pass of the eraser removes the particles from the peaks of the texture, the raised portions where the felt can reach and dislodge. The particles in the valleys, in the recesses too small for the felt to enter, remain. Each use added more. Each erasing reduced the surface layer and left the deeper deposit untouched. The chalk went into the surface, not onto it. The chalk that accumulated over years of use is inside the texture now, inside the pores, held there by the geometry of the surface rather than by the surface itself. The eraser worked on what was above the surface. What entered the surface stayed. The whiteness of the blackboard is this chalk, not the absence of color, the presence of what the pores have accumulated. When the surface was new, the pores were empty. The material showed its own color. The surface read as dark. Now the pores are occupied. The chalk that filled them scatters the light that falls on the surface differently from the empty pores. More uniformly, from more angles, the light returned across a wider range of directions. The whiteness is what the years of use put into the surface, made visible by the light that falls on what remains there. The erasing did not remove this. The erasing worked above the surface. The chalk in the pores is below the reach of what the erasing could do. It entered the surface during use, and it is inside the surface still, in the same pores, at the same depth, unchanged by the years since the last hand drew the last line and the last eraser moved across the surface for the last time. Consider what the pores hold, not the chalk as it was when the stick was whole. The chalk that entered the pores was already broken down by the friction of writing, the particles small enough to pass into the surface texture rather than resting on top of it. What is in the pores is the fine fraction of every piece of chalk that was ever used on this surface, the particles that the writing produced and the erasing could not reach, the accumulation of every lesson in which a hand moved across this surface and left behind what the surface could take in. The pores are full now in a way they were not full when the surface was new. Each lesson added its fraction. Some lessons added more than others. The lessons in which the chalk was used heavily, in which the writing covered the surface repeatedly, in which the erasing was done many times, each erasing pressing the remaining particles further into the texture. The pores at the center of the blackboard, where the writing was densest, are more completely filled than the pores at the edges, where the chalk arrived less often. The whiteness is not uniform. It is the distribution of what the years of use sent into the surface. True wisdom cannot be captured in words. It is found only in the silence between them. Since the room closed, dust has been settling on every horizontal surface. The chalk tray below the blackboard, the windowsills, the desks, the tops of the chairs that no one pushed in completely before leaving. Each horizontal surface has been receiving what the air deposits on surfaces when the air is still, and the particles suspended in it have nothing to do but fall. What falls now is not chalk. When the room was in use, chalk was the primary source of airborne particles. The dust produced by writing and erasing, the fine fraction that remained suspended long enough to travel from the blackboard to the far corners of the room, settling on every surface at a rate determined by the particle size and the air currents the occupied room produced. That source ended when the room closed. The particles that are settling now came in through the gaps in the building envelope, carried on the air that moves through the structure even when the doors are shut. They are finer than chalk. They are older than this building. They are the particulate that the air everywhere carries. The chalk dust that settled during use is still on the surfaces, undisturbed. At the depths and distributions, the air movements of the occupied room produced. On the chalk tray, where the accumulation was thickest, the layer is continuous, preserving the last impressions made in it. The slight ridge where a piece of chalk rested, the shallow depression where the eraser was set down. These are the last marks the tray received from a hand. They have not been disturbed since. The new dust settles over the old. On the desks near the front, where the chalk dust was thickest, the new particles land on a surface that already has chalk in it. On the desks at the back, where the chalk dust was thinner, the new particles land closer to the wood. Both layers are accumulating. The chalk below is from the time the room was used. The layer above is from the time since. On every horizontal surface in this room, the two deposits are present simultaneously. The chalk below, the other particulate above, both settling at different times for different reasons, both held now in the same stillness. Breath enters, breath leaves. Between breaths, the air holds its density. The desk surfaces changed during the years of use. Each desk was finished when it was made. A coating applied to the wood to seal it, to present a surface that would resist the friction and the marking implements that years of use would bring. The coating was smooth, uniform, the wood beneath it protected from direct contact with whatever came to rest on it. This is the desk before the first student sat down. What the years of use did was not uniform. The coating wore in the places where the friction was greatest, the center of the surface, where forearms rested and papers shifted and hands moved. The front edge, where students gripped while standing or leaned while sitting. In those places the coating thinned, then gave way, the wood emerging through the surface the coating had maintained. In the places where nothing reached, the back corners, the margins near the legs, the coating persists closer to its original state. The desk holds two surfaces simultaneously, the worn center and the intact edges, the places where use arrived and the places where it did not. Beneath the worn coating, The wood carries marks that the coating could not prevent. A pencil pressed hard enough leaves a groove, the graphite darkening the displaced fibers at the groove's walls, the groove itself a permanent alteration of the wood's geometry at that point. A compass point leaves a small depression, the fibers compressed rather than displaced, the center of the circle lower than the edge where the compressed wood pushed outward. A blade leaves a cut, the fibers divided at the plane of the cut, the surfaces of the cut exposed and slightly different in texture from the surrounding wood. These marks are inside the surface, not on it, inside it. The groove is a valley in the wood, its walls the wood that the mark displaced. The compression of the compass point is a densification of the wood beneath the surface, present as a region of altered fiber arrangement that extends inward from the surface by the depth the force produced. The cut is a gap in the fiber. The wood separated along the line the edge followed. All of them are changes to the interior geometry of the wood, made from the surface inward, held now in the wood at the depth they reached. The surface of each desk holds these marks and also holds the dust. The dust is on the surface, the marks are in it. Both are in the same desk, the same area of wood. The dust on top of the surface that contains the marks below it. The two records present simultaneously in the same square centimeter of desk, one accumulated during use and entering the material, the other accumulated after use and resting on the material, neither removing the other, neither requiring the other to be absent. The desk that was marked by a hand is the desk the dust is settling on. A groove in the wood was made by a particular force in a particular direction on a particular day. The dust on the desk above that groove settled on a different day, or many different days, from the air that moves through the closed room. The groove is permanent in the wood. The dust is resting on the surface above the groove, held there by the stillness of the air, by nothing more than the absence of a force sufficient to move it. Neither knows the other is there. True wisdom cannot be captured in words. It is found only in the silence between them. Breath enters, breath leaves. Between breaths, the air holds its density. The windows carry what settled on them during the years the room was in use, and what has settled since. During use, the air in the room contained chalk. The chalk particles that did not settle on horizontal surfaces remained in the air until they reached a vertical surface or left the room. Some reached the glass, not in visible quantities, not in a layer the eye could identify as chalk, but in the fine deposit that any glass surface accumulates when the air near it carries particulate. Some of that deposit is still on the glass. Since the room closed, what settles on the glass is what the air in the closed building carries. The fine particulate that moves through the structure regardless of occupancy, settling on every surface including the glass at the rate the air movement and the particle size allow. The glass transmits less light than it did when it was clean. Not much less. The deposit is thin. The reduction in transmission small, not visible as a change in the room's illumination, but present as a slight softening of the edges of objects seen through the glass, a marginal reduction in the sharpness of the contrast between the outside and its boundary. The glass that was installed to be transparent is carrying what the years deposited on its surface, and the transparency it offers now is the transparency of glass with that deposit, which is slightly less than the transparency of glass without it. At night, the glass reflects the room back at itself. The darkness outside and the low light inside make the glass a mirror rather than a window. The deposit on the surface, which by day affected the transmission of incoming light, now affects the reflection of the room's interior. The reflected image of the desks and the blackboard and the chalk tray softens slightly by the layer on the glass between the room and its own reflection. The room sees itself through what time deposited on the surface that was meant to look outward. The deposit on the glass is both periods at once: what settled during use, the chalk particles that reached the glass when the room was occupied, and what has settled since, the finer particulate that the air in the closed building continues to carry, are both on the same surface. The glass holds the two deposits without distinguishing them. The earlier and the later mixed at the scale of the film, the chalk from the occupied years and the other particulate from the empty years present together in the layer that makes the glass slightly less than what it was designed to be. True wisdom cannot be captured in words. It is found only in the silence between them. Breath enters, breath leaves. Between breaths, the air holds its density. In this room, the surfaces face in two directions at once, not spatially. The blackboard faces the room and the desks face the blackboard and the windows face the garden. And none of this has changed since the room closed. The directions are not of orientation, but of record. What entered the surface during use, and what has accumulated on the surface since. The chalk in the blackboard's pores entered during use. It is inside the surface now. The dust on the chalk tray settled after use. It is on the surface, holding the impression of the last objects placed in it, preserving those impressions in the layer that nothing has disturbed. The scratches in the desk surfaces were made during use, by hands pressing implements into wood. They are inside the surface, in the fiber, in the geometry of the displaced and divided wood, at whatever depth the force reached. They are not on the desk. They are the desk at those points, changed from what the desk was before those hands and those implements arrived. The dust on those same desks settled after use. It is on the desk, resting on the surface that contains the marks below it, covering without entering, accumulated without altering what the years of use put into the wood. Both are in the room. Both are in the same surfaces. The chalk in the pores of the blackboard is where it has been since the last hand drew the last line. The dust on the chalk tray holds the shape of the last chalk, the last eraser. The marks in the wood are at the depth the hands that made them drove them to. The film on the glass is what the years deposited on the surface that was meant to be clear. These are not the same kind of record. The chalk in the pores was put there by use, by the friction of writing, by the repeated contact between the chalk and the surface during the work of teaching and learning. It entered the surface because use sent it in. The dust on the tray was put there by time, by the air moving through the closed building, by the absence of anyone to disturb it, by the stillness that accumulates on surfaces when nothing arrives to clear clear them. It settled on the surface because you stopped, and the surface was left to receive what the air brought. One record comes from what happened here. The other comes from what stopped happening. None of this is finished. The chalk in the pores is not dissolving. The dust on the tray is not compacting into something else. The marks in the wood are the marks they were when they were made. The deposit on the glass is what the air has put there, and the air continues to move through this building, and what the air carries continues to settle on every surface the air reaches. The room is not preserved. It is not decaying. It is receiving what the air brings at the rate the air brings it, on surfaces that already hold what the years of use put into them. Dust continues to settle on the desks above the scratches in the grain. True wisdom cannot be captured in words. It is found only in the silence between them. Breath enters, breath leaves. Between breaths, the air holds its density. When night falls, the archive remains.